Should open BDSM play be allowed at Pride? This is something that's been debated hotly in the months leading up to these festivals, and as a former porn star with Kink.com, sex worker, and trans individual, I thought I'd give my 2 cents. Number one, a lot of the discussion revolves around representation right now. You know, that kink is a big part of queer culture, and it should have its place. Another one is about exposure to children, minors. Should they be seeing these things? 2 points I think haven't been brought up enough is, should adults who haven't consented be exposed to what is essentially a public humiliation kink? For myself, kink is a huge part of my identity. I haven't been in a vanilla relationship since I was 16. I know just how important it is to show off my sexuality and my identity. But I also know that as a daddy dom to my wife, taking her to an event that's not strictly kinky risks her safety. If you are a top of any sort and you have your sub around a leash and collar, and the environment is not specifically designed for that, you are putting your sub's safety at risk. Is it physical risk? Is it sexual risk? Is it like verbal risk? I don't know. I mean, I personally get off on getting verbally humiliated and laughed at, but there's a big difference between commenting and slapping my ass in my panties and going around and telling me how disgusting I am, that I would do this to myself, all the judgmental stuff that could well happen at Pride. Now, is it likely to happen at Pride? No, but you don't know. You don't know. There are gay people who have no interest in kink. There are gay people who think kink is a perversion, who think kink is wrong. My own parents, 2 lesbians, grew up in the 60s, huge activists back then, still think that kink is an irrational display of sexuality. There are others like them. And that is why you have to be careful, because not only are you putting other people at risk, you're putting your own, someone you're responsible for at risk. So, when I was in San Francisco, there was a Pride parade and there was the Folsom Street Fair. In the Folsom Street Fair, anyone of any orientation could engage in any behavior. At Pride, you were expected to show off who you choose to love and how you present yourself. In a kink event, you're supposed to show off how you love, not who you love. That's the big distinction there. Now, I'm just going to take a second and just veer off course for a little bit, because another thing that happens in playhouses, in these discrete events that could well happen at Pride, is the type of play that's allowed. What if, one thing I hear is, what if there's a compromise and some types of play go and some types of play don't? Well, a lot of people, everyone's interpretation of kink is different. Everyone's reality of kink is different. It's not a stretch to say that a type of play that falls, technically within the guidelines of Pride goes way beyond the guidelines. Someone inviting someone else to whip their property, someone skirting around the rules, and, that itself creates its own problem. Adults and kids have not consented to see this. All right, so, and that's the beginning. Taking a deeper dive in, you also have to consider the fact that at kink events, there is a lot of scrutiny against people recording things. At Folsom Street Fair, I participated in a studio that did live recording, but generally speaking, at playhouses and whatnot, a lot of people are concerned about getting outed. And so pictures generally aren't allowed. At Pride, you don't have that kind of safety, and you don't have that kind of guarantee. So obviously, if you're a dom sub couple or triad or whatever your relationship is, and you're comfortable with having your picture taken, by all means do it. But if someone's in the background who didn't want to be outed, there are a lot of possibilities, no matter what efforts you make, where things could go wrong. And that's another problem, because especially on the East Coast, people could lose their jobs. It's happened. So the crux of this message is that this culture encourages you to do what's best for yourself and make yourself feel good, no matter the consequences for others. Essentially, if it works for you and it makes you happy, damn the torpedoes. That's really unhealthy, in a general sense to live. It's even more unhealthy when you're talking about a gathering of greatly marginalized people. I personally think that kink and pride should be kept separate. BDSM in of itself is not a sexual act anyway. People mix it with sex, but by itself it has a much different varied history, and that goes back to the 1800s. Furthermore, a lot of queers seem to think that they own kink. That I'm queer myself, so I'm not so much criticizing the community as I am saying that one of the most kinky motherfuckers I know is straight, white, and conservative. Peter Ackworth, who founded the most harassment-free and most diverse BDSM porn studio in the world, Kink.com, was a cishet British guy who was into bondage. He started from scratch, and by the end of it, he had an equal number of gay studios and straight studios and trans studios. And there was virtually zero complaints of any sexual assault, harassment. Everyone was treated respectfully. Everybody was validated. Another point about Kink.com was that they, having worked there, I know, they have very strict guidelines about how people present on the outside, excluding Folsom Street Fair. So, and it wasn't just to protect themselves from legal liability. They wanted to respect the community around them, the very gay, kinky community around them. They knew that it wasn't likely that people would want to see all that stuff going on outside the walls. And I think that goes for Kink.com. I think that goes for Pride as well. Something else that's really important to remember is that a lot of people who engage in kinky behavior do so because of trauma. I'm not saying that's a general rule for everyone, but myself and a lot of other people I know use it as a way to sort of get past a lot of the issues they've had in the past. Putting them in an environment where they have a chance to be hurt is extremely difficult. It's irresponsible for the top and irresponsible for themselves. PTSD, if kink is an effective tool to deal with PTSD, then it has to be handled in a certain way in a certain space. A lot of spaces around, like the Baltimore area, have dungeon masters to make sure that everything's okay. If someone's safe words, they don't keep going. If you agree to a scene with a random stranger at Pride, you're just throwing the dice and hoping someone will intercede. Will they? Won't they? You don't know. That is exactly another reason why I think that this debate needs to focus more on the personal safety of the kinksters. Because you can talk all you want about protecting the children. That's been done by everyone since the dawn of time. We need to talk about how to protect our own kink community, and inclusion with it in Pride is not the best way to do that. Now, myself and a lot of my former sex workers, friends, have said, how much of a big deal is it? Either. We are represented in a lot of ways. Part of the reason a lot of us did porn was to bring BDSM out of some dark closet and into people's lives in a way that can make them happy and have more fulfillment. Now, are we still marginalized? Sure. But 10 years ago, telling someone that you were kinky could be the death knell of a relationship. Nowadays, I'm not so much into that. There's been a sea change. I'd love more representation, but I feel no need to go out in either dom or sub gear to a public place that's not specifically designed for kink. It's how I live my life. It's who I am. If someone asks me about it, I'm completely honest. But unless you need some sort of validation, flaunting it is wrong. And really, the only other solutions to this are to gate Pride off to 18 plus only, just for the sake of kinksters. Now, imagine, if you're into BDSM, imagine this. How would you feel if you knew that 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds could no longer go to Pride and try to discover themselves if because a lot of kinksters just wanted to do whatever the hell they wanted to do, within public decency laws. If there was a whole campaign to ban younger people from Pride, where would they go? Most fetish clubs card, and they're over 18, so do most gay bars. In a lot of ways, isn't Pride one of the only places that you can be yourself and find yourself at that age? Am I wrong here? Like, how many other venues that don't serve alcohol or are contingent upon serving alcohol, contingent upon sexual acts, do these people have access to? And do they all come from loving, supporting families who will agree with them if they're gay or straight? No, they do not. Pride can be a lifesaver. It has been a lifesaver. I know it has been. Do not take that away from them. And so those are some of the points that I think have gotten neglected, and I'd really like all of you to think about. I personally think that kink and pride should be kept separate. Maybe there can be a compromise with some tenths and some age restrictions, but even then, you're conflating something that has more to do with paraphilia's psychology and trauma management with sexual preference and orientation. Now, does kink have a lot of overlap with the gay community? Sure, just ask the leather daddies in San Francisco and the old leather guard. But, if the people who started it said it should be kept separate, then I think that carries a lot of weight. Anyway, I hope you found this video instructive. And again, I welcome you to disagree. I welcome you to challenge my viewpoints. Please comment below if you think I'm wrong. Please comment below if you think I'm right. Please comment below if you can find a constructive solution to this. But I think we can all agree we want this Pride, after COVID, we want this Pride to be the best one ever. So let's all work together and make that happen, okay? I'm Revan, former sex worker, current musician, and avid thinker, and I'm signing off.